So welcome to episode 57 of Level Up, everybody. 60 minutes of live Q&A where your questions and votes really do drive the show. Please use the Slido link that we're going to post in the chat to vote up the questions that you would most like answered, and of course, to add some of your own as well. Level Up is live on Mondays at 8 and Fridays at 2 p.m. UK time, live streamed to both YouTube and, of course, to LinkedIn. And you can find out much more about what we do as a business by visiting our website, apmginternational.com. Today, we're going to be talking about the world of IT service management, something which has grown and evolved and changed dramatically over the last few years as adoption of the cloud-based architecture has accelerated. Managing the development, deployment, and the maintenance, of course, of software and services has really had to change gear. DevOps and site reliability engineering, or SRE as it's known, now have to be at the heart of managing these diverse and constantly evolving environments. So let's jump straight in. We'll meet our panel who are waiting for your questions. We welcome 4 new panelists to Level Up today. Karen Brusch is the current chair of ITSMF here in the United Kingdom, an established specialist in her own right in service management, an author and a presenter on service design and transition. So welcome, Karen.
Good morning. And great to be here today. Yes, I've worked within service management for, it's about 20 years now. I work with Nationwide Building Society as my day job. I'm married with 2 children, and we all do martial arts, so it can get quite feisty in our household.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll kind of try and make those connections kind of as we go. You might hear a little bit more about that and how that's helped in your professional life as well. So thank you very much for that, Karen. Excellent to know. Barry Corless is Director Consulting Expert over at CGI, where he's helping them to build out their professional services capability. His career has been steeped in the world of IT service management, including a period himself actually as a previous chair of the UK ITSMF group. So welcome to Level Up, Barry. Great to see you again. Barry, we can't hear you. Okay, so we'll come back to Barry in a little while. Luca Ingianni is co-founder over at Vempio, where he coaches and trains DevOps with a focus on process, people, and of course, building strong service cultures, which is kind of right at the heart of doing it, not just doing it, but doing it really, really well. So great to have you on Level Up, Luca. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. It's going to be great fun to talk to all of the awesome people here and answer many of the questions that I can already see in front of me. It's going to be so much fun.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Luca. A welcome return to Dierk Söllner, who is a solopreneur, and he works with key clients to strengthen people and teams using empathy as part of his kind of toolkit, if you like. Dierk is also the DASA DevOps ambassador over in Germany and a published author in service management. So Dierk, welcome back to Level Up.
Hi, Nick. I'm delighted to be back. It's always fun to share knowledge with other experts. I guess my performance wasn't that bad last time.
No, not at all, not at all. Quite the opposite. Okay, very good. So welcome back, Dierk. It's great to have you back on the panel. Martin Vitous is founder and executive head of ICT 123, where he combines the very best of a wide variety of methods for his clients, tailoring his approach, I think it's fair to say, to their specific and particular needs. First time appearance on Level Up today. Welcome, Martin. It's great to meet you.
Hello, everybody. Thanks a lot for the invitation. And I am originally a mechanical engineer, switched to IT, and during last years, I concentrate or focus mainly on service management and evolvement to DevOps and other frameworks.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much indeed, Martin. And I think we can go back to Barry now and just get him to introduce himself. So welcome, Barry. Great to see you.
Thanks very much, Nick. It's one of those things. Yeah, you're on mute. You're on mute. So 25 years or so in the industry, or certainly in the best practice side of it. I'm very impressed by Karen's mixed martial arts. I'm something a little bit more passive. I'm a very, very keen ornithologist, and this show is standing between me and a black-browed albatross that's appeared on the east coast of England. I should be going to have a look at a little bit later this week.
All right. Okay. Well, very good. I didn't know that actually about you, Barry. We've met before. Barry and I have met before several times, and I wasn't aware of that. So fantastic. Thank you very much. Now then, to everybody who's watching us online, please, just like the panel, don't be shy. Introduce yourselves in the chat, please, and get those questions coming into the panel. The person who's managing all of that for us is our question master for today, Suchitra Jacob. She's joining us from Bangalore in India. So welcome, Suchitra. And please, may we have our first question?
Hi, everyone. The first question is from James. How much IT service management is needed when running an organization on DevOps?
Okay, Barry, start us off and then we'll hear from Karen.
Yeah, I'm going to give the classic consultant's answer to start off with. It depends, because you could almost ask the question the other way around. How much DevOps is needed in an organization adopting it from an IT service management background? And genuinely as much as is needed. But the one thing I would say, that looking for the parallels between things like DevOps and IT service management, site reliability engineering, then learning something about them and saying, no, I don't need that as a conscious choice is always a far better position for us to be in than, no, I don't need that because I'm ignorant of it and I've never learned anything about it.
Such an important distinction to make. Thank you very much indeed, Barry. Karen and then Dierk.
So for me, I would say that there is a degree of service management needed within DevOps because there's a risk, as we've probably all experienced, that focus is put onto the dev and not so much on the ops. And we find that the management of the overall service tends to get missed. But the ultimate for me is that you would embed what good looks like within all of your automation that you do, that it's not something that's on the sideline, it's actually fully embedded. But that's, quite a big step for a lot of organizations to get to.
Absolutely right. Thank you, Karen. I might come back to that as well about what we're automating a little bit later on. Dierk and then Luca.
I would agree to Barry. It depends. Just a consultant answer, but I think it depends also on the size of the organization. I'm working with smaller organizations, with smaller service providers, and I think they don't ask, should we do DevOps? They just do DevOps. So I think it depends on the size and on the history of the company. I think greater companies with a history on service management, I think they may run, or in the future, their IT organization with IT service management and should use DevOps practices and principles to develop themselves.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Luca, your thoughts, please.
Yeah, so as I'm looking at this question, I'm wondering, it sounds like I encounter this often with my clients that they kind of ask for permission, like, may I please do DevOps and IT service management, like both in parallel or however? And of course, the answer is yes. At the end of the day, like, do what is useful to you. Pick aspects of one and apply them to the other. If you look at them closely, you will notice that they share a lot of thoughts in common anyway. So, like, where does IT service management end and where does DevOps begin? At the end of the day, I don't think it matters. I think what matters is that that you do something that works for you, that provides value to your clients. And if you pull that off, then you're doing everything right, aren't you?
Absolutely right. Yeah, absolutely. It's about getting that recipe for success, really, isn't it? Martin, final thoughts on this?
Actually, I would like to add one thing, that DevOps is a movement that uses automation to speed up And if you want to automate anything, first, you have to build a process, you have to optimize that. And that's exactly the strong part of IT service management. So if you do IT service management, you are ready for DevOps. That's one point. And the second point, you are not able to say, I am DevOps, because that's the journey. And you never know when you are on the end of the journey. So there will always be old way of work. There will always be new way of work, and there will be some kind of hybrid environment.
Yeah, absolutely right. It's the constant conundrum, isn't it, in conversation between, developers on the one hand who want to get things done, and on the other hand, the folks who are managing, the live environments who need to jump in there and fix things when they don't quite work out the way in which you would like. So getting those communities together and thinking all of that through in the minutiae that is required in these complex environments is super, super, super important. What a great question to start us off. So fantastic question. Thank you very much indeed. Well done, panel. Suchitra, let's move on then, please.
The next question is from our panelist, Martin. What is the difference between DevOps, SRE, and ITIL?
Okay, Martin, I'm going to come to you last on this. I'm going to start with Barry and then we'll go to Luca. Now, remember, we are an examination institute, so points will be awarded. So let's start us off, Barry, and then Luca.
Yeah, I think the fatuous answer is they've all got different names. But no, the reality, in some ways, the difference, I think Luca made a very, very good point at the start. And he said that that they're actually getting much closer to each other now, and I think that does make a massive amount of difference. And you can use that to your benefit. That, for example, if you decide that you want to become iterative in your approach, to be honest, whatever's got the most credibility in your organization, be it DevOps, be it SRE, be it service management, ITIL, and they all talk about iteration and being iterative in their and having agility in their approach. So what you might well do is say, well, okay, it's iterative. That comes from DevOps because that's nice, that's cuddly. We know we've got that, we can use that, but actually it's mentioned in the other two, so they all move forwards together. So I wouldn't worry as much about what the key differences are. More about where the overlaps are would be more important for me.
Okay, thank you very much, Luca. Then Dierk.
Yeah, so I seem to be starting here a tradition of not quite answering the question that I was asked. Because I think to me, more important is not to ask what's the difference, but what is the commonality between DevOps and SRE and ITIL. And I just point out that they are pretty much different, maybe perspectives, different approaches towards the same goal. Yet again, the goal of providing value to your customer. And so, I'm struggling to say this is certainly ITIL and this is certainly DevOps. And not ITIL or something like that. So in order to at least give a bit of an attempt at answering the question, I think SRE sort of deliberately moves closer towards operations and says, we will apply agile techniques, DevOps techniques specifically in operations context, not so much in a context of entire product creation. We kind of take a step back from that and say, just keeping the lights on in our operation is such a challenging task that we should have specialists for that. And they will use all of the valuable techniques from DevOps, if you want, or from ITIL, if you want. So I suppose they are, as I said, different weights or different perspectives on essentially the same thing and the same goal, certainly.
Thank you very much indeed. Dierk and then Karen.
I will remain answering the questions and not just pointing out my own questions. So just looking back to the history. Service management is a framework and overarching approach that has grown over many years in practice. DevOps, to my point of view, is a philosophy that is quite young, just I think over nearly 10 years old. And DevOps continues to grow and to take developments from practice. SRE, to my point of view, is an approach that was developed in practice by one company that seems to be quite successful with it, but the success, I think, that does not come only from SRE. So just this to add my 2 cents to the history of the question.
Okay, all right. Okay, Luca, we'll come back to you in a moment. Karen, please, your thoughts?
Yeah, so for me, there's a really simple way of describing the difference, well, from my perspective anyway, that DevOps is about the collaboration between all teams involved and how they can work together, what works best. Site reliability engineering is more about being targeted and how you can use code to achieve that. So what I mean by that is particularly the idea of service level objectives. What does good look like for this service, and how do we get there? Whereas ITIL is much more about the overarching management and how you ensure that everything interfaces with everything else. And I'm not talking at a software level there. I'm talking about how teams interface with each other, processes, governance. So for me, it's very much a bit of a Venn diagram. Yes, absolutely, they overlap in the middle. But it's collaboration management and being targeted. They're the 3 different angles.
Excellent, thank you very much. Luca, your kind of reflections on Dierk's commentary, and then we'll hear from Martin.
Yeah, I just wanted to push back on something that Dierk said, which is that DevOps is fairly young. It's only 10 years old or something. Well, the term DevOps is 10 years old, but many people in the industry used DevOps techniques before that name was invented, or before they became aware of the name. And I think it's also no accident that both Martin and I are trained as mechanical engineers. Those same concepts are what my professors used to bang on about in German as ingenieurmäßiges Vorgehen, the engineer's approach. This is just a reasonable way of dealing with risk and with uncertainty, and call it whatever you like.
Okay, very good, very good. You remind me of a very old-fashioned saying, which is said, if you want a very active conversation, have a discussion with an engineer. Okay, which is really, really good. Excellent, thank you very much indeed. Okay, so we'll so Martin, you asked the question clearly. You asked the question for a reason. What are your thoughts? What are your reflections on the differences, the similarities, the overlap, the approaches, and so on?
So first of all, thanks a lot to all panelists to answer this question, because I receive this question very often from my clients, from my customers, and I wanted to know how other people can see that. And I would like to put together everything what you said, because everything is valid. Everything is valid, and definitely it can work. Luca mentioned that we should look at on commonality. That we want to deliver the value. Dierk mentioned the difference between framework, philosophy, and approach. Luca had some comments about young and old approach or methodology or philosophy. Because I'm the oldest here, I am exactly in the age where I can say to all young people, that's exactly what we did 30 years ago, but we call it in different way. So that's very common.
Great.
It's about collaboration and so on, but it's still on, let's say, general level. And what I learned to say people when they ask this question, that ITIL as a representative or typical representative of service management concentrates mainly on quality. So there are processes, now we have practices, and they really concentrate on quality, and behind the quality, we can always hear availability. It should be available as much as possible. And based on the ITIL, people build some kind of wall around that, because they just want to protect themselves. So it's a great approach from the beginning, but later on, it's a barrier to bring innovation into the organization. Because, we build processes, strict processes, bureaucratic processes and policies and stuff like that. And sometimes it can be difficult to break them and start something
Understand.
new. More or less, there is a motto that failure should not happen. We want to protect against the failures. In case of site reliability engineering, it's about reliability, and there is a motto that failure will happen. And the question is if we are able to deal with this failure. Are we ready to deal with that? And based on that, maybe when we know how to do that, then we can automate processes, and we can really use, let's say, developer or software developer mindset to do the operation. And DevOps itself, it's about speed, time to market. So DevOps will utilize everything what's possible to speed up our delivery to the market, and not only to the delivered market, but delivering on daily basis. And that's very important for me, because automation is part of that. We have a lot of automation in software development, and now we have to bring it to operation as well.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much indeed.
Where site reliability can help.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, we're right in the meat of this, aren't we? So it's fantastic. Thank you very much indeed, everybody. And a great question, Martin, and very well done. Points all round, I think, to the panel. Excellent. Now then, if you're watching online, I can see many of you actually are now. So great that you're joining us this morning. This is exactly what Level Up is all about. It's about us learning from each other, okay, to level up our careers. And it's a fantastic opportunity now for you, right this moment, to grasp that and to put in your questions directly to the panel. And we will make sure that we get them straight in, okay, and answered for you. So on that note, Suchitra, let's move on. We'll take our next question, please.
And we do have a live question from David Tomlinson. What aspects of cultural change do you think are most vital to enabling DevOps and SRE in environments that are seen as traditional ITSM?
It's a really good question, David, and thank you for raising it, because this kind of culture of change is a super important thing for us to be able to build. Martin, I'm going to give you a little rest for a moment. I'm going to hear from Luca first, and then we'll come back to Martin.
But I hope that I'll be saying what Martin was going to say anyway, because I'd like to sort of point back to the excellent points he made just before, that it's really about a change in perspective and saying, well, don't try to wall off your operations. Don't try to make problems not happen, because they will anyway. And instead setting yourself up as an organization to accept that things will go wrong sometimes, and it's important what we do then, like how well we are set up to react to this quickly, safely, and I think that is the biggest cultural change, to just say, look, eventually something's going to go wrong, and we need to be prepared for that, and just accept that it's going to happen. Was that what you were going to say, Martin?
Martin, go ahead.
Oh, thanks, Martin. It's now Dierk.
Martin, go ahead, please.
Not exactly. What I wanted to say, that if we want to answer this question with one single word, then for me, it's collaboration. It was mentioned here a couple of times. I think that this is the huge aspect of culture change, that people should recognize that it's not enough to be good specialist and do my job. It's necessary to work with others and make sure that the complete product, not just my part of the work, but the whole product is delivered. And it's not so easy for many people.
Agreed. It's absolutely true. Thank you very much, Martin. Dierk, and then we'll hear from Barry.
Just one point to add. I think many companies are talking about cultural change, and they think they can make a plan and say, okay, we now have to change that, and we have to change that. I think they should realize that persons, that each individual has its own path to a change, and it's so you can't change a culture or you can't change a mindset only by saying just change your mindset. We have to change our culture. I think that's the point. And to my point of view, some companies don't take that in mind. So take a look on the culture and the mindset. You can't change it by command.
It's very true, isn't it? It's very true. The more you push, the worse it gets. Okay, the more resistance that you achieve. There must be some, from my physics background, there must be some kind of theory in there somewhere. Barry, and then Karen, please.
Yeah, I think I absolutely agree that one of the primary elements is collaboration that Martin said, two answers ago. I think what I'd like to do as well is narrow in on an area that I was at a virtual conference for SIAM, Service Integration and Management, last week, and one of the key areas there at the moment is. And looking at from a service management viewpoint is experience management and the idea of XLAs, and somebody even coined the phrase XIAM last week, XIAM, which is a little bit scary. How long before somebody's trying to sell that? But from that perspective, I think getting the focus on experience, whether you are in a DevOps, an SRE, or an IT service management environment, would be will be a big help because all three of the practices there, DevOps, SRE, and ITSM, can all guide you towards a better experience for your customer. So I'd push experience up into towards the top of that pile as well.
Excellent advice. Thank you very much. Karen, last thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think for me, one of the things that you really need to consider, certainly where there's traditional ITSM, is that the cultural shift is being flexible and adaptable. So you need to be able to think in that flexible way of how can I apply what needs to be done in order to make things move faster, not hold stuff back, and that is very difficult for environments where they're seen as traditional ITSM to do, I think, because there's this tendency to want to hold on, and actually that's almost the worst thing you can do, because then people will just go off and create their own processes and ways of working anyway.
It's you're absolutely right. The whole thing that's changed through my career, when I began in IT about 100 years ago, it's very, very different to how it is now. The democratization of IT has happened. It's happened. So people find new ways of doing things regardless. Okay, that's kind of one of the laws that there is in place now. All right, very good. Thank you very much indeed, panel. What a fantastic question. Thank you very much, David, for asking that, linking this kind of progress together with change management, cultural change, and so on. Fantastic. Suchitra, let's move on. We'll take our next question, please.
Question from Phil Gray. Is a qualification in each discipline important?
Karen, start us off on this, and then we'll hear from Barry.
The short answer for me is no. I think it's the learning that's more important. Obviously, if you need a qualification for the purposes of getting a job, then that's slightly different. But in the context of, do I really need to have a full qualification for each discipline? No, I don't think so. If you've got the knowledge, you've got the knowledge.
Thank you very much. Barry, your thoughts?
As an exam institute, and this being APMG, I've got to say, of course it is. But in some ways, I'll agree wholeheartedly with Karen that it's not mandatory. But I think where it is important is probably two areas. Number one, if somebody is going to coach in this type of area, then very often if they're coaching people who don't necessarily know what good DevOps or what good SRE or ITIL or good service management looks like, then that little bit of credibility that it adds to the person delivering the message might be important. I'm not saying it would be for every time that you'd use it, but it might be an important message. to get across. The other one, for the people who are starting to use it, then again, it might be that little bit of confidence that actually I know enough about this best practice now to have answered 40 multiple choice questions or whatever it is correctly. And that gives me a little bit of more confidence to be able to use this and talk about this with a little bit more confidence. So although the qualifications, as Karen said, are not vital and mandatory, I think they play a very, very important part sometimes in the psyche of getting this done from a credibility and from a confidence viewpoint.
Thank you very much indeed, Barry. Martin, and then we'll hear from Dierk.
I would like to agree with Karen that it's not important to have the knowledge, but it's very important to be on that learning journey, because everything evolves and you cannot say, I know enough, so I can stop to learn. That's not possible. That's one point. On the other hand, the qualification or formal qualification, including certification, can be for big group of people, let's say, motivation to learn. That's one point. And another point is that we have a lot of, let's say, international or global companies, and they need certain level of knowledge in the organizations, and they want to be sure that they receive, let's say, the same or at least similar content in different continents, in different areas. So from that perspective, the formal qualification or certification is important, because that's the way how you can guarantee that.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. And Dierk, your thoughts?
Yes, I'm sorry to Karen and to Martin. I will disagree, but maybe it's a part of the translation, because I think qualification is needed for every job you do, but maybe it's just the German translation. So I think you need to know what you are doing, and I think it's helpful to learn what you are doing, to be open and learn about new methodologies, new approaches, and a certification. That's my point of view, is really helpful. But first of all, you have to have qualification for your job.
All right, absolutely. Thank you very much indeed. And, I would just strengthen that, everybody. There's several moments in life when, qualifications and the certification that goes with them becomes super important. Firstly, think about where you are in your career. If you have the aptitude to do something and you've not yet got the experience, then gaining a certification and a qualification can help you make that leap. Right? So that's the first point. There's another point as well, is when the stakes go up, when the stakes rise, I can assure you, having that formal education and formal test that you really do know your stuff is super helpful. Okay. Generally, there's a lot of people, a lot of families going away now this year for the first time in 2 years. People are able to travel, and I'm quite sure that they feel considerably better that the people at the front operating the controls have actually gone through qualifications. All right, very good. So thank you very much indeed, panel. Let's move on. Suchitra, we'll take our next question, if we may.
Question from Matt in Reading. Does the panel agree with IBM that DevOps is about core development and SRE is about implementing the core?
Yeah, this is one of those marvelous. It sounds like this has come from a blog, actually. So, so let's try and think our way into this. Martin, start us off.
Very simple answer, no. From my perspective, it's definitely no, because development is development, and where is the operation?
I think it's the kind of thing that, sort of comes out of, if you're trying to write in 300 words or less, you try and find a headline, that's going to get attention, dog bites postman is not interesting. Postman bites dog kind of gets your attention. So perhaps that was the original author, their intention there. I think kind of my view on this would be that the phrasing's a little bit too tight. And I agree with what you're saying, Martin, is that ultimately here we need to kind of think about, the core heart of what you're trying to do in these two disciplines and how related they are. So we kind of covered some of this content a little bit earlier, that there is actually more in common than there is distinct from these two. So I think that's a really good question. Thank you very much, Matt, from Reading, for posing it to the panel. Got a very clear answer in one go. No, is the short answer. Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Suchitra, let's move on if we can.
Question from Deepak in Mumbai. For a service management professional, how important is membership to professional bodies for continuous career development?
Okay, Karen, I think this one is appropriate for you to start us off with.
Yeah, I think that there's two sides to being a member of a professional body. One is being able to network with other professionals and learn from each other and talk about best practice and what's emerging. The other side of it is actually having access to training, to learning materials, to coaching and mentoring. So absolutely, I'm a huge advocate of being part of a professional body.
Okay, thank you very much. Totally support that view. Barry, your thoughts?
Yeah, I would support Karen in that the professional bodies, very often, well, almost without exception, the professional bodies have got very, very good career paths, and a lot of the professional bodies as well have got good career paths that don't necessarily depend on a single flavor of whether it be DevOps or SRE or ITIL or and going down a route. I think the other thing I would add about being a member of a professional body as well is there are certain societies around the world. Actually, a lot of them probably won't be on this, and will probably hear it by catch up. The US, the United States, where they love a good post nominal after people's names, and so if you can become a member of or a fellow of or get involved in one of those professional bodies that will allow you to put letters after your name, it might be in terms of advancing your career or your as I said before, your credibility might be really, really important. But I think Karen's point about the fact that they provide mentoring, they provide that kind of excellence, they provide that career path and help you, then that's probably the most important point.
Yeah, completely agree. Martin, your thoughts, please.
From my side, I would like to agree with Karen and Barry, and I would like to add just one small thing. In those, let's say, professional bodies, you can have a network of people, you can get material, but we were talking before about learning journey. And we should remember that we can be active in those bodies as well. And learning others or shared knowledge with others, it's, let's say, last step teaching others is the last step of learning myself. So that's another point, because we can share, we can discuss, and through that we can learn something on top of that.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. It's super important, and that's the philosophy really behind Level Up, that everybody gives generously. When you give generously, you can receive as well, and in doing that, you have the opportunity to actually share one of the things which everybody is looking for without exception, which is, okay, in the real world, how did you do that? Just share with me. What was your thought process? Just talk me through that. I'd really like to understand that, because in that commonality of sharing, then you're able to distill out what is emerging practice. And over time, that becomes leading practice as it's refined by the intelligence of the crowd, if you like, rather than of the individual. Excellent points. Thank you very much indeed, panel. Suchitra, let's crack on. I can see the questions stacking up. We'll take our next question, please.
Question from Leila in the Netherlands. Can the panel recommend any books for me to learn SRE?
Well, that's a good question, Leila. What books and publications? Luca, your thoughts?
Yeah, well, so I think I've got three for you, Leila. The first is I think you could do a lot worse than starting off with Google's SRE book, which I think you can find at sre.google. You don't necessarily need to agree with everything that's written down in there, because some of it strikes me as being particularly relevant to an organization that looks very much like Google. But it's very helpful in that it explains the terms and what they mean as far as Google is concerned, and that helps you understand the rest of the conversation. So that would be my first recommendation. The second recommendation would be the book, The Phoenix Project, which nominally is a DevOps novel, but of course, all of the thoughts that are explained in there apply equally well to an SRE context, and they go back to some things that, for example, Martin and Karen have mentioned many times, which is this spirit of collaboration and working together. And the third is actually a website which I think is extremely powerful in having the right mindset, the right framing around SRE, which is called how.complexsystems.fail. I promise you that's a real URL. How.complexsystems.fail. And it's actually an excerpt from an excellent paper, which I think will give you great insight into what SRE, to my mind anyway, should be about.
Oh, three fantastic. Right. Luca, you are a walking encyclopedia. Thank you so much. It's really good advice there. And we're going to put some links to those different publications actually in the social media chat. So if you're watching online, we'll post those links in the next couple of minutes. All right. And if we don't manage to get them all in, we'll certainly put them into the recording on YouTube. So Suchitra, let's move on, if we may, and we'll take our next question.
Question from Stefan. Can the panel share any success stories about using SRE other than Google?
Okay, so I think the Google use kind of case study is probably the most recognized around the world. What are the panel's experience of using SRE? Any? I mean, obviously, anonymize your clients, please, folks, because you're all working in different industries and different, different countries and so on. What are the panel's thoughts on use cases for SRE and any success stories? Martin and then Dierk.
Actually, I think it was mentioned here a couple of times that people do that, but maybe they don't call it in that way. They use common sense, and maybe when I can come back to previous question, Luca mentioned Phoenix Project and Unicorn Project, 2 books, and I really like them because they are all about DevOps, but you will not find DevOps word inside. That's about solving problems, and that's exactly with SRE as well. People just use common sense, and they try somehow deal with daily issues, with daily problems, and they found their own way with SRE. On the other hand, there are a couple of unsuccessful stories when SRE was implemented in the way that they changed the titles on the doors. So that's definitely not the way how to do it. But it's unfortunately very common.
Okay, thank you very much. Dierk, your thoughts?
I would agree to Martin. Stefan, I just started Googling success stories and SRE, but I didn't find any recommendation. No, so just back to the truth. I think in my trainings and in my consulting part, I think the companies just learn or should learn what SRE is about or what DevOps is about, and I think they pick small parts of it, just to use small parts of it. I think Martin was right. You cannot say, no, now we are doing Agile, and next year we will start doing DevOps, and next year we will start doing the SRE. Just pick the good and useful parts with collaboration, and just have a look on what's your customers need and how do you deliver value to your customer. Just take 1 or 2 or some parts of all these approaches and frameworks.
Thank you very much. It's a good point, isn't it? It's like kind of, trying to catch the right wave. The ocean's a good example for this, a good analogy rather for this, in the sense that, organizations are being faced with wave after wave after wave of, rebadging and renaming and being challenged in order to be able to deliver different outcomes. And I think it's super important as professionals that you take your time to some extent and you manage to ensure that you deliver value out of adopting different tools and techniques and approaches and so on over time. That's super important. Otherwise, all that you end up doing is kind of chasing your tail. All right, very good. Let's move on, Suchitra, if we can. I think we've got time to fit in maybe 2 more questions if we hurry.
Question from Marta. Is DevOps qualification useful for me on a team manager level, or is it more useful for more advanced levels?
All right, so if you're managing people then, Barry, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think this is almost the same answer as is a qualification important before. If that gives Marta the credibility and the knowledge to be able to manage the team more effectively, then hey, yeah, go for a basic qualification. If feel that they need to go deeper, then go deeper. It's difficult to answer that out of context without knowing the position that Marta's actually in there, but that really is an answer. It depends on if we ask 50 different people, absolutely guarantee there we get 51 different answers in that space about whether it's it is genuinely that, Nick, about whether it's useful.
Thank you very much indeed, Dierk, and then Martin.
I will start with a short answer. Yes, but I may explain it a little bit. I think DevOps is a wide range of qualification. So one, I think really good point, or one really useful point of DevOps is building autonomous cross-functional teams. And if you are, and I think you are, when you're asking, if you're a team manager, you should, you may learn from DevOps how to look on your teams, on the qualification of your teams. And if you see, have a look on DevOps in the technical parts and the operating parts, it's useful for your team to learn about DevOps. So it's useful for you, it's helpful for you to learn about DevOps, about building teams, building cross-functional autonomous teams which deliver value.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Martin, final thoughts on this?
From my perspective, if we think about broader definition of the word qualification, then answer is that DevOps qualification is important for everybody. How Dierk mentioned, it's very broad and you have a lot of stuff inside. So that's one point. And he mentioned autonomous teams and stuff like that. There are some principles, and everybody who think about speeding up delivery should understand the principles. That's one point. And based on the position, based on the task they have to do, they can start to think about other steps. So question is not if it's important, yes or no, but which one is important for me.
Absolutely right. Thank you very much indeed, Martin. And I would say, increasingly, people who are fulfilling these roles, building those autonomous cross-functional teams, it's a player manager role. It's a player manager role. So you've got to get involved. And if you're going to get involved, then learning is all part of that. And you can bring something to that multidisciplinary team in your own right as well. So very good. Thank you very much indeed, panel. So I think we're kind of running out of time, but we've got the chance, Suchitra, to fit in one last question. So let's do that if we may.
Question from Dierk. What are the differences in job roles of SRE and DevOps?
Okay, so Dierk, we're going to come to you last on this panel. So This is like the one from Martin a little bit earlier, okay? So we're just kind of challenging our thinking here. What would you say are the differences in the job roles of, folks who are specializing in SRE and folks who are more looking from a DevOps perspective? Who would like to volunteer to go first on that one? Luca, thank you so much. Go ahead.
Well, to my mind, the difference is not so much a difference of approach, maybe. I think all of the techniques that make sense for the other to a greater or lesser degree. But to me, the important thing is about what is the subject of your work. So maybe quote unquote traditional DevOps is more about building user-facing products, and SRE work is more about creating the foundations, creating the environment to run user-facing products safely and stably, and iterate on them quickly, obviously. So maybe that's the answer. It's a matter of nuance. It's a matter of how you view yourself and how you view your product. Other than
Absolutely right. No. Yeah, fantastic. Thank you very much indeed, Luca. Totally agree with you. Barry, your thoughts, and then Karen.
Yeah, I think I'll agree 100% there with Luca that it is context specific. I think you could sit down in front of an SRE, somebody who works and says that I'm working with an SRE, somebody who says they're working in DevOps. You could sit there, you could watch them for a day, and at the end of the day, maybe they'd say one or two things or give one or two ideas that might say, well, they're more geared towards one or the other just by the language they use. But I think in terms of the way that they work, the way that they collaborate, the way that they view the way that they view what they're doing, I'm not sure you could tell a massive amount the difference between them, and even something like the Sophia would really struggle teasing those two apart in terms of job roles.
Very much indeed. Karen, and then we'll go back to Dierk.
Yeah, I think if there's any difference to be found at all within SRE, you would more naturally find people with an engineering background, because that's what it's about. And with DevOps, you're more likely to find a combination of the traditional software developers and support teams that are collaborating together to build something amazing. But it is quite a fine line between the set. You have to consider engineering in DevOps, and you have to consider how you code and how you support in SRE. So there isn't a lot of difference.
Very good. Thank you very much indeed. Dierk, how helpful were those answers?
Very helpful. I will say thank you, panelists. I have nothing more to add.
Okay, all right, very good. Well, look, that's the whole kind of perspective of Level Up. All right, we come together as a group, we kind of sit together, we talk about this stuff, we talk about the tricky questions and the easy ones, and we start to give you and everybody actually the opportunity that when we're sitting in a meeting or we're online and we're being asked for our thoughts and our ideas about how to, these are the nuances that you're able to bring and add value into your organization. So absolutely great job, panel. So let's now take our closing remarks, if you like. So Dierk, we'll come to you first, and then we'll go to Luca.
So thank you for having the opportunity to take part in this Level Up episode. And I think I learned a lot today. From Luca, from Karen, from Barry, and all the other things. I learned a lot from the questions. Thank you to all the audience. And I would like to pass over to the next guy.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Thank you so much, Dierk, for joining us as well. It's always a great privilege to have you on the panel. Luca, your thoughts, please, and then Karen.
Yeah, so first of all, just like Dierk, a big thank you to the other panelists, and most importantly, to the audience who asked questions that really challenged me, and I learned at least as much as you did. So that was quite wonderful. Looking back, what I see is that you might think that a lot of our questions were answered with "it depends," but I think what it all boiled down to really was this focus on value and on collaboration, and on doing the right thing. And I think this is what I'm taking away from the show personally. So again, thanks so much for having me here. This was great fun.
Fantastic. Thank you for joining. Thank you for bringing the energy and the good fun and the humor. It was brilliant. Absolutely excellent. Thank you very much indeed, Luca. Karen, and then Barry.
yeah, so likewise, it's been great to be part of this and some great conversation. So that's great. Thanks. I think my one reflection would be, don't view traditional ITSM, DevOps and SRE as distinct separate ways of working. They are very much complementary to each other and helpful to each other.
Absolutely right. It's you're so right, Karen. It's all mixed up together, most certainly. Barry and then Martin.
Yeah, equally a big thanks to all the people that have been involved in helping to produce this, including the behind the scenes guys who are putting the technology together. I would say I would kind of echo the points that my fellow panelists have made, and give one more piece of advice: beware the zealot. Yeah, the one person in your organization that says, "Oh, it's DevOps or nothing," or it's SRE or nothing, or it's ITIL or nothing. They are probably the most dangerous people you can come across. That they've closed their minds to everything that we've said as a panel here, which is experience the best of them all. And I think Luca said it best: do what's right.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Barry. I've just written that down. Good one. Thank you, Martin, and then Suchitra.
Definitely, I will follow in tradition. So thanks a lot for invitation. Thanks a lot for questions, and thanks a lot for inspiration I can take away from this discussion. And my short summary is very simple. It's all about people, not about technologies. That's one point. And the second point is what Barry said, there is no silver bullet.
Thank you very much.
You have to always
absolutely.
put stuff together. And yeah.
Perfect. Okay, thank you very much indeed, Martin. Suchitra, quite a fast and furious show today. Your reflections?
Absolutely. I enjoyed asking all the various questions and listening to the amazing answers from the panelists, and also the great collaboration between everyone. So thank you very much.
Hey, excellent. Thank you very much indeed, panel. Now, I'd like to thank everybody on the panel's behalf, really, our producers who are all online. You are the people who shape the show by sending in your questions. And so thank you very much indeed for doing that. Some great questions, actually, that we had before the show and also during it. Over on our website, you can now search for and view all of the answers to over 800 questions now. From more than 100 panelists, actually. It's an amazing free resource. Just go to apmginternational.com/level up, and that will connect you with all of those experts from all around the world. And don't forget, of course, that you can listen to Level Up through our podcast service, and that's available on your preferred podcast platform. Please do like and subscribe to the videos. It's super important for us. It really does help other people find the video online and discover all of this professional development for themselves. Level Up now is taking a little bit of a break over the Easter weekend. So there's no show on this Friday, nor on the following Monday. All right. But we will be back actually with a cracking show on Friday, the 22nd, where we begin looking at the must-have templates for project managers. So that's sure to be a super popular event. So hop over to Slido and put in your questions around the best must-have templates. Even make some suggestions of your own if you like. You'd be welcome to do that. Subscribe to the show and we'll send you a personal summary of what's coming up and how you too can join us here on the panel and, of course, level up your career with APMG. Thanks very much, everybody. We'll see you next time.